That's right, Rushion McDonald. Welcome to my show, Money Making Conversation. Each Money Making Conversation talk show is about entrepreneurship and entertainment. I am the leading voice in this industry for entrepreneurship and entertainment. I provide the consumer and business owner access to celebrities, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and industry decision makers. It is important to understand that everybody travels a different path to success. That is because your brand is different. The challenges you face in your life are different. So stop reading other people's success stories and start writing your own. Now, you can be motivated by their success because all these stories can offer direction and help you reach your goals through your planning and your committed effort. My guests on Money Making Conversation have that same passion, and they share that information when I talk to them about their careers, what's motivating them, what are they promoting, and how they live a balanced life. Then they reveal to me their secrets to success. My next guest is a two-time Billboard 40 Under 40 power player. In his career, he has overseen the development of many notable artists and brands, including Anita Baker, Emily King, Corey Henry, Luke James, Michelle Williams, Miguel, Kool in the Game, Lecrae, Leon Thomas, festivals like Outside Lands Music Festival, and many more. He is an artist manager, founder of Culture Collective and Culture Collective Records. Please welcome back to Money Making Conversation, my man, Jonathan Azu.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hey man, the intro only gets bigger every time you come on the show.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the invite and to be back on the show speaking with you.
Well, you know, the great thing about watching your brand and it's all about reinventing yourself. You know, you're doing this process, and then all of a sudden you see an opportunity, but there's always a possibility that shift may not work. In the process of how you're building your brand and leading talent, but also recognizing that you are a brand and a talent too. How do you separate the difference?
It's interesting. I mean, I've always considered myself personally a brand, right? And people ask me, what do you do? And I usually say, well, I'm a marketer at heart, right? But I'm an artist manager,
right?
And I apply that approach to marketing as it relates to my dealings with my clients, but also as it relates to myself as a brand. And I used to always think about myself like a blank cereal box, right? And walking down the aisle of a grocery store, you know, what are the things, what are the images, the colors, what's on the side of the packaging that is going to make somebody say, I want to buy that, or I want to do business with that person. And, I think about what are the elements that make up Jonathan Azu, what are the elements that make up Culture Collective? And I think about that packaging and the things that we want to apply to it. And that's all marketing.
Yes.
Right? That's all marketing. That's all brand development.
Right.
And we apply that same approach to working with our clients as well as ourselves.
Well, you know, the good thing about it, I know a lot of your clients, and just a little side note, Anita Baker, Giving You the Best That I Got. My wife and I got married on that song. That was our song at our wedding. So, you know, I always wanted to tell Anita, whenever I meet her, I'm going to hug and say, 32 years later, we still together, Anita. And your song helped us out. And so, but you know,
congrats to you then, by the way. 32 years of marriage. That is amazing.
Thank you. It really, I appreciate what you're doing. Let's define what from my research. You founded Culture Collective in 2019. The importance of Culture Collective as regards to urban artists make up less than 1% of the client base at stations at top firms nationwide. So, just a drive to understand that urban artists are underrepresented in a field that they may dominate. And so that's what the basis of your development, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as somebody that sat at the top of major organizations and had an opportunity to look down at, you know, what's coming up next, what's having a cultural impact, but then also who's working on it, I saw this massive lack of diversity and inclusion within the corporate ranks of these bigger companies. And then in addition to that, you know, you look at the artists that are the trendsetters and laying the pavement in today's generation, and you know, they look like us, right? And the people that are representing them do not. Not that it's necessarily a race thing, but ultimately, from a culture perspective, you want to be able to look across the table and know that you're somebody really connects with what you're doing. So I started Culture Collective with that mindset, with the mission statement, where diversity and inclusion is how we think about who we work with and how we hire.
Right.
And my goal is to really, really have a well-represented set of team members that can sit with our clients and come up with the concepts and ideas to build their career. And that was the birth of Culture Collective And I'm having a lot of fun. It's been almost a year since we last spoke.
Yes, sir.
I joked that we still have that new car smell, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're having a lot of fun, and being entrepreneurs, we get an opportunity to look at opportunity spaces that need to be filled, and within that, we have some clients that were in between record labels.
Right.
They didn't have partners to put out music, but they had very, very flourishing careers in touring and other aspects of what they were doing, but they just didn't have a partner to put out music. And I started to look at, well, why can't we put out that music? And what are the barriers of entry of us putting out that music?
Mm-hmm.
We started Culture Collective Records with that in mind. And
Right.
We partnered with InGrooves, which is a universal company,
Mm-hmm.
to help make sure that our artist music is available across all digital service providers. And we work closely with their team on the marketing and promotion of those artists. And Luke James, who's a longtime client, is the first artist to be released through this new venture.
Right.
His new album, To Feel Loved, was released on January 31st. To Feel Loved, was released on January 31st. And we not only are the managers for Luke, but now we're proudly the record label for Luke.
Well, the interesting part of why I maintain a relationship with you because of the visionary relationship that I feel that you're bringing to the industry. When you talk about the limited recognition of, urban talent, African American talent, or talent of color, how we participate, but we seem to be bottled in. I know that for a fact because I executive produced and co-created the Steve Harvey Morning Show, and I was on there from 2000 to 2016. So I know how the music industry can play itself out. And what I'm getting at is we always get underrepresented. For instance, we have June as our Black Music Month. June is Black Music Month. Okay, then you look at the Music Month for everybody else. You have the Grammys, you have American Music Award, you have Billboard, you have Howard Radio. We're not even talking about country and western. And then BET Music Award is basically our award show, when we should have more. That's the area that I really want to start talking to you about. How can we get more visual representation in our award shows on television? Because that is necessary. We have to have more than just BET Awards. Am I mistaken when I say that, Jonathan?
I agree, and I think it's interesting. It's an interesting point because I think that part of that more is our culture in brands coming to life
Mm-hmm.
in more ways than just our award show. I mean, BET Awards. I mean, one of the most coveted award shows
Absolutely.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
The Hip Hop Awards as well. And when you look at the Grammys, the AMAs, and all these other shows, it's important for us to be able to have a presence within those environments too. And not be underrepresented. And I think part of that is making sure that we do have people that represent our culture within the executive ranks of these companies so they can hire the right folks and be in the right room for these conversations to come to life.
And this is about business because one of the big things about the Grammys this year was diversity. And P. Diddy made a big deal on stage during his speech about diversity. Now, explain to the people why it's important to have diversity in music behind the performance, behind the talent.
I'm going to go back to last Grammys because this is something that was well talked about. Not this past Grammys, not 2020, but 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Motown tribute.
Right.
That a lot of people had a lot to say about, and most of that was around the fact that we weren't well represented within that tribute. Okay, and I think that sometimes that can happen if we don't have the right people in the room to make sure that our culture is really, really represented.
Yeah, the wrong people singing Motown hits, right? Just because you're trying to get a hit, don't just throw somebody out there singing something they shouldn't be singing it.
Correct. Yeah, or has no real tie to the history of Motown.
Right.
So I think it's super important at the end of the day, and creating Culture Collective is just my way of helping to break that cycle. And really develop the next executive. I mean, we focus a lot around hiring young talent and hiring interns and mentoring the folks. I always say that the ways into the world of Jonathan Azu and Culture Collective are as high touch as negotiating deals, partnering on deals, on down to just inspiring each other.
Well, it's so special when I talk to you, Jonathan. And the fact that, I am meeting and talking to so many minds like you. Whether it's a Charles King at Macro, now he's starting to manage the division of his company, and you're visionary, and I know that this year we're all going to meet in the room because we have to talk this conversation even what Byron Allen is doing. He's talking about it's a group of people make a decision for everybody that don't look like everybody. And so, and I'm not trying to turn this call into a warpath call, but it's an information call about the fact that if you really want to be successful in any business, you have to be allowed to participate. And so that's what you're trying to get, and that's what you're saying in starting the management firm that you have and what you've done all your life, correct?
Yeah, I recently on Martin Luther King Day, I got together about 20, the last minute thing. I was supposed to be traveling on that day. I thought I was actually going to be in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and I shot out an email to about 30 or so folks within my network,
Mm-hmm.
Senior level executives at their company on down to interns, and said, I want to treat everybody to dinner. Let's get in a room, close the door, and let's have a conversation how we can lift ourselves. Right.
Right.
An open conversation. And it was a beautiful thing. And it's something that needs to happen more, and not just on MLK Day, but it needs to happen every single day.
Right.
For us to be able to share with each other the insights, guidance, knowledge that we have in the struggles of how we lift ourselves within entertainment.
Cool.
Oftentimes, one of the things that came out in that conversation was people are like, well, it's not just in my head, this other leading voice in that space is experiencing the same challenges. So I'm not crazy, right?
Right.
Because when you're sitting in these environments and you're the only one of color, you often can get inside your own head and think that it's just me.
Right. Cool. We're talking to Jonathan Azu. He's the founder of Culture Collective, started in 2019. And guess what? He's rolling with partnerships he's created with InGrooves. We'll be back with more on Money Making Conversation. This is awesome. Again, collective minds, collective thoughts generate success.
We'll be right back with more from Rushion McDonald and Money Making Conversations. Don't touch that dial.
Hi, this is Rushion McDonald, and you're listening to Money Making Conversation. I'm talking to Jonathan Azu. He founded Culture Collective in 2019. And right now, I want to talk about the current artist roster that includes Emily King, Luke James, Leon Thomas, and my favorite person and good friend, Michelle Williams. Talk about your roster and why are those particular people on your roster?
For me, I got into this business because I have a passion for it, and I was able to take a passion and turn it into a profession, and that includes the artists that I work with. I'm a fan.
Right.
Everyone I've ever worked with in my career, I've been a fan of. I've never once worked with somebody that I was like handed.
Right,
said,
right.
Work on this. I know you're not into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm passionately a fan, and each one of those artists that you mentioned are all have always been on my playlist.
Right.
So it's exciting. It's exciting to be working with them. It's exciting to experience growth. And as you know, being an entrepreneur and successful business executive yourself, growth is a powerful word.
Mm-hmm.
We develop a lot of really great blueprints and roadmaps to help growth. Right. And that's from a bottom line standpoint. That's from an audience reach standpoint. That's from a streaming standpoint. It's from a ticket sales standpoint. And each one of those artists has had great growth over their careers working with us.
Well, it's really important. When I'm looking at you, when I introduced you, we was talking about the brands that you've seen, overseen the development. Anita Baker, Emily King, Luke James, Michelle Williams, Miguel, Kool in the Gang, Lecrae. That's my man right there. So that's gospel. That's Miguel. That's hip hop. Kool in the Gang. There's R&B. Anita Baker. There's sultry R&B. Okay, that's a love affair of music. That means your playlist is like you grooving and you're popping and then you're praising the Lord.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally. It's soul food in some form or fashion, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's really, really important that. So, what do you see the direction of music? Like I was at NAPTE, that's the National Association of Television and Program Executives, and podcasts was just the rage. We know streaming out there came out and exploded. And now podcast is the rage of not just the audio version of, but the video version of podcasts is next level. With that, you'll see that more and more being spoken about because they realize the generation really don't care about an 85-inch screen on the wall. They really don't. They care about what's in their hand. And right now, what's in their hand is things they're willing to download, willing to play, willing to carry with them. What is the future of music in that particular era or that particular space, or does it stay the same?
Yeah, I think, and then just to build on what you're saying, they want it when they want it, wherever they're at, right?
Right.
Right. So if I want to listen to a podcast, I don't want to have to schedule it. If I'm sitting on the bus on the way home, and I can pull it up on my phone, whether it be audio or visual.
Right.
At that time, that's the time that they want it, and it's almost like music in streaming music really was the leader in that behavior, the adoption of that behavior of what I want, when I want.
Right.
And now you're seeing it start that to layer through other forms of media. As far as music and streaming is obviously beginning to have an aggressive growth. When it first came into fruition, there was a lot of different companies trying to figure out streaming, and I always felt that once it was all said and done, there would be a handful left,
right?
Maybe a few.
Mm-hmm.
And we're proving that to be the case between Amazon, iTunes, and Spotify. And now we kind of have the big three for the most part. There's a couple other smaller ones within that fourth and fifth and sixth position, but ultimately this is how people consume music. And now you're starting to see, as older audiences get older and younger artists start to come into the consumption mix,
right?
Streaming will only get bigger and bigger.
It's really interesting. I look at your resume. I see you're tied to festivals. Are you tied to festival as a person who supplies talent or as a producer?
So I after many years working in radio myself, I went over to a company called Superfly, which was a group of guys that graduated from Tulane that had come up with the concept of putting a large scale music festival together in the United States that was built off of the Glastonbury.
Right.
So what happens when you drop 60, 70, 80,000 people into a field and you build multiple stages and multiple experiences within that environment,
right? And
live on that property for that site for 3 to 4 days. Mm-hmm. And that was the birth of Bonnaroo. And I went in to work with the team that actually put that festival together. I wasn't on the talent buying side. I was more on the operational side, but all aspects of the festival fall underneath operations. So we had a very, very good preview of talent and who's coming up. One of the funner things that I do around my house is I have all the old posters from all the shows that we produced. Mm-hmm. And, billing for a show is always a fight of like who's at the top of the poster, who's at the bottom of the poster, right?
Right.
And it's interesting to look at the bottom of the poster for some of these previous years and looking at the artists that are down there that have now,
arrived to the top of the poster.
Top of the list, in 2020.
Yeah, like Miguel. I way back in,
exactly.
What I'm saying? Wow, I think Drake about to break his record or something on Airplay or something like that. It's really amazing.
It's funny when the first tour I did with Miguel, I can't remember the year, but Miguel was direct support to Drake, right? So Drake was the headliner. It was a Would You Like a Tour?
Right.
Drake was the headliner. Miguel opened, and Future was the first act. So it has to shake out.
Oh my God! Well, that's the beauty of seeing the beginning and watch it come to the end, or watch the path of growth, and you go, because everybody has that hustle. And you like I met Miguel because it's out of L.A. when Steve and I was doing local radio, hip hop and R&B. When he was trying to find his voice, getting his music out there. And I look at him now and go, wow, it's been that many years and he still got the passion to win. He still has the passion to say, I'm going to be number one. I'm going to be successful. That's a drive. When you manage talent, I always tell people, like right now I'm managing Stephen A. Smith. For many years people have known me actually 16 or 20 years I managed Steve Harvey and built his brand to a international media brand. But it's a lot of work when you manage talent. A lot of people don't understand that. Talk about your version of your skills or the things that you put in place so you can manage the different talent that you have.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm at an interesting intersection because I spent many years in media. I was essentially doing label relations and developing interesting partnerships for CBS Radio corporately. So we had 180 radio stations, 50 program directors, And then I leave that world and I go into the live event festival business when festivals were just really starting to take off in the United States, right? We were pioneers in that space, and now you see a lot of festivals out there, but we were the first to be there. And then to jump over and help to run Red Light, which, eventually became one of the biggest management companies in the world. Right. Mm-hmm. I had this, I'm sitting at this interesting intersection where I had the ability to be able to go in there and work with artists, and when things come up as relates to their career, I'm one phone call away from, figuring something out in the live event space, in the media space, technology space, or the management space. I've been around there. I've been around all these places. So one of the things that I always try to bestow upon the young executives that work on my team is, let's get you as diversified as possible, right, in your skill set and your ability to be able to speak from a strong standpoint of various topics of business because you have experience within those worlds.
And you mentioned it. You said, I hear you, radio, Red Light. You talk about management, which means you see contracts, which means you're dealing with decision-making situations. When you talk about the festivals, you talk about the operational end. Those things really help you out. I'm a sitcom writer, just myself. I'm a stand-up comic, so I understand talent. I manage shows, I produce shows. So when I walk in a room, there's a lot of information that I can absorb rapidly and make decisions associated with it. And that's all you're saying to young people as they come into or being mentored by you. The more you know, the more diversified your palette is for information that you've absorbed through experience. That's how you have longevity in this business and respect in this business. Correct, Jonathan?
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And respect is a big thing. I mean, you want to, conduct and character and respect. Ultimately, that's all businesses, but especially within entertainment, especially as a minority within entertainment, you want to make sure you preserve that in the best way possible. So conducting yourself in the most positive, upbeat, respected, professional manner possible, you can do nothing but grow. Well, that's your approach.
Well, my friend, just recap a little bit about your partnership with InGroove before we wrap up the interview. That you have Culture Collective Records, you have a partnership with InGrooves. Talk to us about, again, why was that launched in that manner, and what's the future?
Yeah, Luke James is a client that we've worked with for many years, and Luke was a former major label artist, and for various reasons had left the Island Records label, which is a major record label, and here he was sitting with a bank of beautiful music to put out and nobody to partner with to do it. And we're, as his managers, dealing with him on a daily basis on developing his roadmap and his career. Say, well, what if we just develop a strategic relationship and we'll put the music out. We'll be the label, right? Right. And I've done some work with InGrooves in the past, a lot of great success with them. And when I sat with them and launched Culture Collective a little less than a year ago, I went over to their offices and shared the vision and mission statement of the company. They thought it was great. They thought it was very much needed in the business. And at the same time, they said, if there's any way in which we can be helpful to you or your clients, we should have a larger conversation. And that was, the birth of our first, brainstorms around coming together to develop a pipeline for us to be able to put music out through their system. So fast forward 8 months later, Luke James is going to be putting out his release through the InGrooves Universal pipeline into digital service providers. We are the working with InGrooves on all aspects of this release, and it's been great. It's been a great relationship.
Awesome. As always, articulate, informative, and spewing out the knowledge we all need to hear. Jonathan Azu. Thanks for coming back on Money Making Conversation. We talk again. Let's say another 6 months. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
I appreciate you, brother. Talk soon. Bye-bye.